I was busy setting things up. Hopefully the volume adjusting will be fixed because, well, this is something Spreaker does for some reason. I find it personally very annoying, but what can I say? Okay, so today we're going to be doing a reading of Rebecca, again by Daphne de Maurier. I feel like I keep saying that wrong. I don't know why. Anyway, after that, if I think up any topics, I will talk about it for a little bit. No one gave me any topics on DeviantArt today, sadly. Oh well. I guess it's because it's a little hard to do topics all of a sudden. And I don't have any questions to answer, so we're going to skip that too. So it'd be just a reading today. And a little bit of music. Today's music is made by Kevin MacLeod. He is a really nice guy. And he pretty much just makes music and has it open and freely to use without any copyright restrictions, as long as you give the guy credit. So if you're interested in his music and would like to use it for your own type of personal media, you go to incomputech.com. That is INCOMETECH.com. That way everything there is settled and I don't get any copyright issues. Oh, copyright issues. If I ever get to play it, I would like to play this time around Peace of Mind, Penumbra, whenever things get a little scary, and Moonlight Hall to cheer things up a little bit. Let's get started with the reading, and I'm going to be playing Penumbra. Hopefully that doesn't sound too bad in the background while I'm reading. And the volume adjusting is a little bit off here. I don't know why it does that. It's a little annoying, like I say. Anyway, let's get this started. Already 2 minutes in. And we shall begin the reading. We'll be reading from chapter 1 to chapter 3. And then we'll talk about what's going on so far and see what you think. This is again TK, and hopefully you will enjoy. Last night I dreamt I went to Manderley again. It seemed to me I stood by the iron gate leading to the drive, and for a while I could not enter, for the way was barred to me. There was a padlock and a chain upon the gate. I called in my dream to the lodge-keeper and had no answer, and peering closer through the rusted spokes of the gate, I saw that the lodge was uninhabited. No smoke came from the chimney, and the little lattice windows gaped forlorn. Then, like all dreamers, I was possessed of a sudden with supernatural powers, and passed like a spirit through the barrier before me. The drive wound away in front of me, twisting and turning as it had always done, but as I advanced I was aware that a change has come upon it, and it was narrow and unkempt, not the drive that we had known. At first I was puzzled and did not understand, and it was only when I bent my head to avoid the low swinging branch of a tree that I realized what had happened. Nature had come into her own again, and little by little, her stealthy, insidious way had encroached upon the drive with long, tenacious fingers. The woods, always a menace even in the past, had triumphed in the end. They crowded, dark and uncontrolled, to the borders of the drive. The beeches, with white, naked limbs, leant close to one another, their branches intermingled in a strange embrace, making a vault above my head like an archway of a church. And there were other trees as well. Trees I did not recognize, squat oaks and tortured elms that struggled cheek by jowl with the beeches, and they thrust themselves out into the quiet earth, along with monster shrubs and plants, none of which I remembered. The drive was a ribbon now, a thread of its former self, with gravel surface gone and a choke with grass and moth. The trees had thrown out low branches, making an impediment to progress, The gnarled roots looked like skeleton claws. Scattered here and again amongst the jungle growth, I would recognize shrubs that had been landmarks in our time, things of culture and grace, hydrangeas whose blue heads had been famous. No hand had checked their progress, and they have gone native now, rearing to monster height without a bloom, black and ugly as the nameless parasites that grew beside them. On and on, now east, now west, wound the poor thread that once had been our drive. Sometimes I thought it lost, but it appeared again, beneath a fallen tree perhaps, or struggling on the other side of the muddied ditch created by the winter rains. I had not thought the way so long. Surely the miles had multiplied, even as the trees had done, and this path led but to a labyrinth, some choked wilderness, and not to the house at all. I came upon it suddenly, the approach masked by an unnatural growth of the vast shrub that spread in all directions, and I stood, my heart thumping in my breast, the strange prick of tears behind me. There was Manderley, our Manderley, secret and silent as it has always been, the grey stone shining in the moonlight of my dream, the mullioned windows reflecting the green lawns and terrace. Time could not wreck the perfect symmetry of those walls, not the sight itself, a jewel in the hollow of a hand. Terrace sloped to the lawns, and the lawns stretched to the sea, and turning I could see the sheet of silver, placid under the moon, like a lake undisturbed by the wind or storm. No waves would come to ruffle the stream water, and no bulk of cloud, wind driven by the west, obscure the clarity of this pale sky. I turned again to the house, and thought it stood inviolate, untouched, as though we ourselves had left but yesterday. I saw that the garden had obeyed the jungle law, even as the woods had done. Whoa, hold on. Big word. The rhododendron stood 50 feet high, twisted and entwined with bracken, and they had entered into alien marriage with a host of nameless shrubs, poor bastard things, that clung about their roots as though conscious of their spurious origin. A lilac had mated with a copper beech, and to bind them yet another more closely to one another, the malevolent ivy, always an enemy to grace, has thrown her tendrils about the pair and made them prisoners. Ivy held prior place in this lost garden. The long strands crept across the lawns, and soon would encroach upon the house itself. There was another plant too, some half-breed from the woods, whom seed had been scattered long ago beneath the trees, and then forgotten, and now, marching in unison with the ivy, thrusts its ugly form like a giant rhubarb towards the soft grass where the daffodils had blown. Nettles were everywhere, the vanguard of the army. They choked the terrace. Sorry if you hear any voices in the background, that is my family. Derp. I'm going to be putting another song right now in case of any tired boredom of just my voice. This is Peace of Mind by Kevin MacLeod. It's a little calmer and less eerie than Penumbra. Lost my place, sorry. Nettles were everywhere, the vanguard of the army. They choked the terrace, they sprawled about the place, they leant, vulgar and lanky, against the very windows of the house. They made indifferent sentinels, for they had places their ranks had been broken by the rhubarb plant, and they lay with crumpled heads and listless stems, making a pathway for the rabbits, I left the drive and went on to the terrace, for the nettles were no longer a berry to me. The daydreamer. I walked enchanted, and nothing held me back. Moonlight can play odd tricks upon the fancy, even upon a dreamer's fancy. As I stood there, hushed and still, I could swear that the house was not an empty shell, but lived and breathed as it had lived before. Light came from the windows, the curtains blew softly in the night air, and there, in the library, the door that would stand half open as we had left it, with my handkerchief on the table beside the bowl of autumn roses. The room would bear witness to our presence. The little heap of library books marked ready to return, and the discarded copy of the Times. Ashtrays with the stub of a cigarette, cushions with the imprint of our heads upon them, lolling in the chairs. The charred embers of our log fire still smouldering against the morning, and Jasper, dear Jasper, with his soulful eyes and great sagging jowl, would be stretched upon the floor, his tail a thump when he heard his master's footsteps. A cloud, hitherto unseen, came upon the moon, and hovered an instant like a dark hand before a face. The illusion went with it, and the lights in the windows were extinguished. I looked upon the desolated shell, soulless at last, unhaunted, with no whisper of the past about staring walls. The house was a sepulchre. Our fear and suffering lay buried in its ruins. There would be no resurrection. When I thought of Manderley in my waking hours, I would not be bitter. I should think of it as it might have been. I could have lived there without fear. I should remember the rose garden in summer, and the birds' security. I skipped banks. The birds that sang in dawn. Tea under the chestnut tree. The murmur of the sea coming to... Lost track here, sorry. Tea under the chestnut tree, and the murmur of the sea coming up to us from the lawns below. I would think of the blown lilac in the happy valley. These things were permanent, and they could not be dissolved. They were memories that cannot hurt. All this I resolved from my dream, while the clouds lay across the face of the moon. For like most sleepers, I knew that I dreamed. In reality, I lay many hundred miles away in an alien place, and would wake before many seconds had passed, in the bare little hotel room, comforting in its very lack of atmosphere. I would sigh a moment, stretch myself in turn, and open my eyes, be bewildered at the glittering sun, that hard, clean sigh, so different from the soft moonlight of my dream. The day would lie before us both, long no doubt, uneventful, but fraught with certain stillness, a dear tranquillity that we had not known before. I would not talk of Manderley. I would not tell my dream, for Manderley was ours no longer. Manderley was no more. Wow, that one chapter took actually longer than I expected. Interesting. Maybe I will be doing one chapter a day after all. With that in mind, I'm going to be putting a bookmark here as soon as I find one. And we shall continue this tomorrow, because I got some plans tomorrow. Heading out to SeaWorld and going to have a little bit of fun. I'm going to pause peace of mind here so that way I can talk and you can hear me clearly. Oh dear Lord, is my voice minimized the entire time? I hope not. That would be terrible for this. Okay, what else was I thinking about today? Tomorrow I'm going to be heading out. Gonna probably take some pictures. I gotta charge the camera. Make sure I do that before I can take pictures or anything. And I'm gonna enjoy the day. And hopefully that won't interrupt too much my time for tomorrow's reading of Rebecca. I'm gonna be changing the title from Rebecca chapter 1 through 3 to just Rebecca chapter 1. I did not think it would take so long to read that out, but I guess it does. I am glad I was able to find some music for this, though, because it sounds so much better with a little bit of music in the background. Some other things that have been on my mind, just the lack of topics. I mean, I need something else to talk about when I'm done here, other than what I've read so far. If what I've read so far was sound really interesting, it's like, it seems so far it's like there's a forgotten place that I would like to sort of visit and look into more in the story. That would be very pleasant. But anyway, again, hope you enjoy. I don't have any other topics to go over. I might bring my brother next time around or sometime in the future to talk about maybe games or some other interesting things. And I don't have any questions to answer, so if you have any questions, be sure to tell me on DeviantArt. I will probably have a journal for that, or if you can't tell me that way, you can leave a comment on my podcast. So yeah, I'll accept any questions as long as they're not like personal questions, because, well, I like keeping my anonymous self. Anyway, that's pretty much the end of this. Again, credit to Kevin MacLeod for making the songs. The only songs I am able to use today was Penumbra for the eerie beginning and Peace of Mind. If you want to check out his music and use it for your own media, again, you go to incomputech.com. INCOM, I think, PETECH.com. Somehow I forget to spell. And if you want to check out my artwork, or if you happen to be a deviant and want to leave a question, feel free to do so at... Hold on, some issues with my mic here. Feel free to do so, leave a comment, ask a question, or check out my artwork and other information on the podcast at xtkandchaosx.deviantart.com. If you'd like some any other information, just let me know. And I bid you a goodbye, and hopefully you'll listen in tomorrow. See ya. And this has been TK, signing out.